know what I find so funny about this video? That the ex-boss, not Xbox, okay, just had to make sure, of PlayStation fights back against modern gamingism. Oh, really? That's funny, because I go as far to say that Sony have been the main contributors to it. What is wrong with you ponies? Do you guys forget that Ellie and Abby are both GAY in their respected gaming franchises? Let's also talk about the fact how Kratos went from being this masculine man to being a father figure to his son. Really? Boy! Boy! Boy. Oh boy. You know, it's so funny that the Xbox, I'm sorry, not Xbox, the ex-boss of PlayStation is out here telling you guys that, you know, it's the gaming community, they pushing all this woke stuff, and yet you got Ghost of Woke. Like, what else there needs to be said, man? If anybody's been pushing agendas, it's been Sony, and Microsoft just decided to follow suit, and that's exactly what they're doing. But Sony is the one that popularized it. You know, with all their cinematics, with the lack of substance in gameplay, you know, the same thing these Xbox One owners was trying to tell you. But since Sony with the PS4 was their market leader, well, look where the market is leading to. It's so funny how you ponies don't want to take no accountability for the stuff that you've done. Typical.
When you actually consider it, we're seeing a bunch of games that are coming out that are good and fun, like Helldivers 2 or Space Marine 2.
People still talk about this game. The last, like Baby Panda and Fizz. I thought that game died. No pun intended.
You know, all sorts of stuff is coming out that is incredible.
Well, everybody else is dying. He just discovered the light post. Means you weren't doing anything.
Fun and epic and crazy long, like Baldur's Gate 3. But we're also seeing a bunch
which is also third party
projects that are being launched essentially busted, unfinished, or a lot of times just terrible, like Conquest.
Oh yeah, you know, another great example to add to the ex-boss PlayStation employee. How about Until Dawn Remake? You keep getting them, Jimmy. You're too much.
Or Suicide Squad killed the Justice League, and a lot of people are beginning to ask, is the industry failing, and how can it be fixed?
But I thought everything was fine, according to you. You know, we already know Xbox is dead, it's failing, nobody's buying games, even though they're subscribed to Game Pass Ultimate to play them. But apparently everything was peaches and cream on the PS5, apparently. And this is what gamers have been trying to tell you. We try to explain to you guys that it's been an industry problem that has been going on for quite some time, and yet ain't none of you guys wanted to hear me.
Now, the reason I wanted to talk about this today is because the former head of PlayStation, Shawn Layden, he did an incredibly in-depth interview with a lot of insight about how he feels about the current state of video games and even the state of PlayStation 5 stuff. And I wanted to talk about it because this man is a genius.
Really? You guys go as far to give this man, Shawn Layden, the respect that Jim Ryan deserves. Jim Ryan has been blessing the PlayStation platform ever since the PlayStation 1. But just because the PS5 is doing so bad, you had to throw that man's name through the dirt. All in favor for Shawn Layden hasn't done anything. I'm telling you right now, I respect Jim Ryan before I respect this man. This man, Shawn Layden, is the reason as to why Sony is the way it is.
He worked at PlayStation from 1987 all the way up until freaking 2019.
And Jim Ryan was the one controlling the show. The irony and all that.
Sony and then PlayStation. So the guy has definitely seen the rise of video games.
The only thing that he was good for was the Sony Walkman. But guess what? That's played out, bro. Nobody cares about that. That's what puts Sony on the map. Imagine, guys, a Walkman. And now you're walking in games. Sony has made the first Walkman, so they decided to make you walk in their games too to play them. Jimmy, you're too much.
Came from a budget perspective, from a gameplay perspective, and I wanted to take a look at it because his thoughts on how we can fix games, I think they make a lot of sense. But
well, you might want to start by fixing your games first, because the Until Dawn remake needs some work. It's so funny that you ponies are really out here taking this man as some sort of credibility when he co-signed on 2 broken games at launch. You ponies are too much, man. You know?
Let's talk about that. I hope you're having a great day, and if you could play it in 3 years.
Oh wow, look guys, we're back on the PlayStation 1 days.
Crank it out. Develop, concept, create, market, sell it. But now...
How many times do I have to teach you this lesson, old man? Gaming was inexpensive back then. You know, a game like this selling probably, 1 to 3 million would have done well. That would have been more than enough to make up for the budget. But the problem is, these games have now skyrocketed to $300, $400, $500 million budgets at times. And that's what's causing the gaming decline.
Every single game has a triple-figure budget. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars.
Look at that. Former PlayStation boss says games need to go back to 3-year development cycles. Well, that's funny, because Sony can learn from this example. 3 years has already been up for the PS5, and yet we still ain't seen no sequels to Uncharted, Last of Us, not even the Marvel Spider-Man online game. You know, if anything, these games got canceled in that 3-year development cycle. Shawn Layden's are full of crap.
Mid-tier games, and that's quite frankly getting unsustainable. But the biggest problem is this time limit. The fact that if you're trying to make something, it feels like a lot of the industry now is chasing trends. Oh, this game is hot, let's try and copy that. But if it takes them 5 years or even 8 years to make it, you're never going to catch that trend. I mean, there's talks about the fact that apparently Concord was trying to copy Overwatch, but in the time it took them to make just Concord, Overwatch 1 came out, did really well, and then to die off, we got Overwatch 2, and now Overwatch 2 is basically dead, and now after the death of Overwatch...
No. If I can go and play Overwatch 2, then the game isn't dead. What game is dead is Concord, because you cannot play it anymore. What are you talking about, bro? And the only reason why you said that, because that game is owned by Microsoft. Yet again, Microsoft has single-handedly beat out another Sony game. You know, so much for that accusation that you guys like to complain.
Overwatch 2, Concord is finally complete. How the heck did they possibly think that would ever actually work out? But
I mean, at this point, they were developing the game for so long. See, this is what you people don't understand. Why would the company develop the game for 5-6 years and then just say, all right, we're going to cancel it? You might as well just go through with the whole shebang just to see what happens. You know, it's so funny how you play. So you guys would rather have if they just cancel the game completely. You do understand that if that's what they did, a $400 million loss would have been just cut down to maybe a $200 million loss. Sony would have still lost in the end. I mean, at the end of the day, at least we've seen some bits of something. The only complaint that I have is that they should have kept the servers up and required it, through a PlayStation Plus. They could have done that. But nope, they didn't want to.
A lot of people in the comments here are sort of reacting to it in that there is this mixed result where some people are saying, okay, but big games are cool too. I want games just to have appropriate development cycle to their scope. Some games should be larger than others. And I like this because, yeah, it's hard to just say a specific time limit to it. The problem is that every developer wants to have the biggest game ever. And
that's not true, because Sony ain't dropped a big game since the PS4. What are you talking about? That's why you're still playing remasters and remakes. That's why we haven't seen an NBA. You know what? I can't go as far to say that. Marvel Spider-Man 2. Even though I do think it has a lot of the same old assets. But hey, we'll use that game. One game. That's all Sony has done. Wow.
Is right. I did see people posting stuff like this where recently we got the Silent Hill 2 remake, which...
Yeah. And none of these games cost a lot of money to make. Resident Evil 2 don't cost a lot of money to make. Dead Space Remake did not cost a lot of money to make. Silent Hill 2 did not cost that much money to make. And Alan Wake 2 did not cost that much money to make. You're not proving no point here, bro.
The game is so good. I've seen people post stuff like that. These are games that I think, according to my own research, I think all of these took longer than 3 years to make. So the straight hard...
Which is quite sad, because Dead Space is a remake, Resident Evil 2 is a remake, and Silent Hill 2 is a remake. Unbelievable.
I wanted to take a look at this. This was a comment that definitely kind of blew my mind the most, which is the fact that it's really wild to consider how fast we used to make games. Like, look at this. The Halo trilogy came out in 6 years, the entirety of it, from 2001 to 2007. God, that's so wild. The God of War trilogy came out
because games was not expensive, and they were making huge profit margins on lower budget games at the time. What do you people don't understand? Like, are you guys just confused? The fact that you guys keep talking about the old days of the 360 and the PS3 goes as far to show you that the PS5 is garbage. Okay? We have never, and I mean never, done this in the history of gaming until now. And you people know exactly what I'm saying. I mean, you started it with the Xbox One and PS4. I did remember that. But when PS1 came out in comparison to 2, nobody talked about PS1. When the PS3 came out, well, people still played the PS2 because they couldn't afford one. But once people kind of got into the whole ecosystem with PS3, they didn't care about PS2 no more. They didn't care so much so that they didn't even care when Sony didn't even have it as backwards compatible. They moved on. Original Xbox, they moved on with the 360. They moved on with the One. PS3 owners moved on with the PS4. You did not see these PS4 owners crying about PS3 games. Now you are, because you ain't got nothing to play. Stand-up comedian. Stand-up comedian. You know, you guys just make it awfully too easy for me. And what's crazy, they were making money on these games. If these games came out nowadays, they would have to, well, depending on the budget, they would have to at least make probably about 5 to 7 million sales. See, a game like that could have sold 1 million and still did well. Why? I don't understand. Why? It's quite easy to understand. The budgets were smaller.
5 years. Gears of War trilogy came out in one generation. Resistance trilogy. Fuck, this is still crazy. I'm very obsessed with the original PlayStation. I've been playing a lot of original PlayStation. It is still baffling, and I made a whole
separate... Well, you're going to continue to play it because Square's got some more remakes in store for you.
Video about this. The fact that we got Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9 back to back. I mean,
We're not going to talk about the tactics.
You guys truly today cannot imagine how wild it was to be getting a game and immediately be in gaming magazines reading about the next one. Like, your brain is dripping out of your eyes. FF7 is so good, and they're already showing screenshots of FF8. Like, it's very well known. Final Fantasy 8 and Final Fantasy 9 were made concurrently. They made them at the same time. I don't even know how that's possible because those games are so different, but...
It's actually quite easy. They didn't take very long to make. See, that's what you don't understand. Bigger budgets just means more resources and more money and more just everything in general that it's going to take to this game to get made. So you guys want to go back to PS1 days? Is this what I'm starting to understand? Because I guess they can go that direction. And maybe we'll go back to having 10, 15, 20 games like we used to. But there's another argument that we have now. Is that now gamers are comfortable with what they're playing. So people are no longer going to want to experiment by trying out any more new games. See, this is a huge problem in the gaming community. You know, the Parasite Eves and all these other unique titles, Square won't come out with those games. They might do remakes to these games that you see here, but they will never touch a Chrono Cross or a Chrono Trigger remake because they know those games don't do well in sales. I mean, they did well back then, but they know if they reintroduced it, nobody's going to buy it. Look what's going on with Star Ocean.
That's just how fast they used to make games because they weren't trying to make photorealistic graphics and 8 billion hours.
So what do you want? So what do you people want? Do you want the PS5 to go back to this? Because I'm going to tell you this. If PS5 go back to looking, PlayStation go back to looking like this, then I'm just going to go play retro gaming full time.
These games are not just good, they're not just great, they're influential. And I feel like that's kind of the point of this person's post, is the fact that...
See, the problem is, and I'm going to explain it for you guys right now, because I've gotten in arguments about this before. It's the fact that these companies are not taking advantage of the hardware and trying to push it in new and ambitious ways. They're taking templates. There's no inspiration. And to be honest with you, that inspiration leads to a company going bankrupt. This is why they're focusing on templates and focusing on what they believe works. So when you sit there and you get mad at Concord for failing, when all they're trying to do is copy a successful game, well, maybe if they did something different, people wouldn't still buy it. That was their way of trying to ease people into the new game, and this is a problem with the gaming community. And what's even funny, you want to bring up the fact that gaming back then was better, which I would agree, but there was a lot of franchises that went underneath the cracks that nobody supported and bought. That's why you still see the Final Fantasies, the Gears of Wars, the God of Wars, and the Halo trilogies. Because these are the ones that stood above the time, and these are the ones that people flock to. Gaming has always been casual. I'm trying to explain to you guys. It took for the real hardcore gamer to go out there and buy and support games from a different Horizon. Not that Horizon Zero Dawn, Horizon. It took a real gamer to expand his plethora of games, man. What about Evolution? What about Time Stalkers? There's so many different good RPGs. Grandia 1 and 2, Grandia 3 even. But the problem is these games all got overshadowed by what? Final Fantasy. Which therefore means there's no reason for these games to come back, no matter how good they are. You see? And this is where your gaming knowledge comes in. This is why when you're above the rest and you have the brain capacity of a gamester, you know which games to go and pick up and play. The gems, I should say.
Back in the day, not only did we get good games, but we got them at a shorter clip. These companies managed to find a process to make games as quickly, as low budget, and as fun as possible, and then immediately put it out there so people could interact with it. Now, Shawn Layden used to do this talk where he'd discuss about Viv Ribbon. This chunk of his interview that is incredibly good, and I want to go through it because he says that relying on blockbusters is a death sentence for the industry.
Then gaming is over. I mean, at this point, PlayStation, pick up your bags and go home because nobody picks up a PS5 to play games that look like the PlayStation 1. And this is why we try to explain it. And you guys have faith in the PS6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I don't care about that patent. Because as of right now, Sony can't even get it together with the PS5 without doing remasters and remakes. What makes you think when they come out with the PS7, they're not going to do any more? Your things is equivalent to a phone. You're going to get the same games and you're going to update and upgrade them. That is it. Your console is essentially a PC. You will no longer get ambitious games because even the Sony executives themselves are telling you. The proof is right there in front of your face. Relying on blockbusters is a death sentence. There you go. That's all that needs to be said. Game over. Video gaming is done. But GameStop, what? It's still going on. Listen, for the passionate gamer, for the gamer that has been gaming for 30 years, the gamer that has been playing since the NES, gaming is over for you. They don't care about you. If you're talking about gaming for Roblox and Fortnite, then yes. But don't sit there and put me in that equation because I ain't one of those bums, okay? That's what you people don't understand. So the day that I stop seeing interest in gaming, which I'm starting to have, is the day gaming is done for me. I don't care how long Sony want to go on with a PlayStation 6, 7, and 8. If you still keep pushing Fortnite skins, you've already lost the gamer. I don't care who you think, oh, we're going to replace 20 of those gamesters with 10 more million of these Fortnite players. Looking forward to buying more Travis Scott skins. Wow.
Now, I have to admit that having this statement come from an ex-PlayStation executive...
PlayStation's dead.
...powerful because Sony is making, in my opinion, the highest budget games in pretty much the world.
I can't believe you said that. You just said that PlayStation... He said that PlayStation is making the highest budget games, but they're focusing on remasters and remakes. What is you talking about, bro? Weren't you defending Astro Bot for not having a big budget but being a good game? You know what you're doing here, man. Yeah, Until Dawn Remake was a big budget, but it flopped and failed. But to say that Sony is doing big budget games by solely focusing on remasters and remakes is a comment that you need to retract right now. I'm gonna save you.
Like, there are some leaked numbers that they spent something like $300 million, maybe $350 million making Spider-Man 2, which
came out last year. Yeah, we know. One game. Okay, and? One game. One expensive game. But what about the others? Helldivers 2 wasn't expensive. That's a AA. Rise of Ronin. These are not AAA games, man. And they're not made by Sony either.
I mean, from everything I've read, that seems like it might be the most expensive game ever made. I mean, that means they have to
No, it's not, but go ahead.
sell something like tens of millions of copies to break even on that cost.
Oh, wow. Now he's finally understanding.
There's only like 75 million PlayStation 5s that have been sold. That means that like 15% of the entire planet of PlayStation owners has to buy that game for it to even be even.
Who said that? Who said that before anybody? Gangsta with another W. I told you. The higher the budget of a game means the higher the game has to sell. When you was damage controlling for Rebirth and Final Fantasy 16, when I told you that those games failed because of the respected sales that we've seen, nobody was capping here, bro. We try to explain to you that, but you was the one running rampant saying these games are doing well on PlayStation. Oh, Square, they just asking for too much. Square, they always do this. Downplaying the situation, and I told you guys that this is a problem with Sony, and y'all didn't want to listen to me.
That's ridiculous, but he has some really interesting quotes here that I really want to take a look at here today. Here we go. Today, the entry cost of making a AAA game is triple-digit millions. I think naturally, risk tolerance drops. You're looking at sequels. You're looking at copycats. Those finance guys, they draw the line and say, well, if Fortnite made this much money in that amount of time, my Fortnite knockoff can make that same amount of money.
Yep, and that's why you're seeing with the Xbox partner preview, that's what you're getting. Knockoff games, bro. Look, Gamester with another W. I always win. Even when y'all thought you had me with Spark, and I still won, because that game has a lot of bugs and issues.
We're seeing the collapse of creativity.
It's done.
In games today.
Game is over.
Studio consolidation.
Pack your bags, guys.
Production. This is wild. That genuinely, this right there, this is the entire problem with the gaming industry. Right?
That's funny because I've been saying this for years.
There, that one sentence, this one little paragraph.
That's a paragraph.
This is the entire problem with every game you don't like. Every game that feels bland and boring and uninspired. Every game you've ever played that says like, okay, this feels overly derivative. This feels like an exposure for these lower budget games. But super creative and super unusual types of games, I'd like to see more of that, because if we're going to rely on the blockbuster to get us through, I think that's a death sentence. Essentially saying, you can still have big AAA stuff, you can still have longer dev cycles, but...
And the only company that can afford to do that is who, guys? Not Sony, not Nintendo. Y'all know what I'm about to say. Y'all know it. And this is where Microsoft has destroyed you from the inside out. Is Microsoft. Microsoft has the pockets to be able to still continue to do AAA games. How come that's something that you guys don't like to bring up? Nintendo ain't doing it. Sony ain't doing it. If anything, you guys say it's Microsoft's fault as to why gaming is the way it is. When in reality, console gaming has gotten better, all due to their existence. Explain. Online with console gaming? I mean, yeah, it was done between Sega. I mean, they had the same visions, but Microsoft popularized it. Like, why do you guys hate Microsoft so much, man? They've done so much for the gaming community, and it's so sickening to see you ponies keep saying, oh, bro, you would still be playing PS3. What am I talking about? You're still playing PS3 games. Look at The Last of Us remake. And you want to sit there and say, Microsoft's bad for the gaming community. It seems like Microsoft is good, because Microsoft ain't doing no remasters and remakes. They doing new games. AAA budgets. Perfect Dark. Gears E-Day. These are all big budget games. And you know what? They're gonna Fable, another big budget game. These are all big budget games that are doing well on Game Pass Ultimate for some reason. But Sony can't get it together with you fanboys buying their exclusive games. It's done. Sony is over. Sony is dead.
Bulk of games need to be AA. There needs to be something in between the mass.
No, for Sony and Nintendo, it need to be AA. But for Microsoft, it could be AAA all the way.
The AAA stuff and the tiny, tiny indies. Like, I love AAA games. Of course, I review a lot of games.
Yeah, we know. That's why you're looking forward to Doom Dark Ages and Indiana Jones. All games being provided by who? Microsoft. You still want that Starfield, baby? Another AAA release. Microsoft with the Elder Scrolls 6, another AAA release. You know, it seems like Microsoft is the only one company out here trying to bring their audience bigger and better games. But y'all want to downplay it, man. Gaming has stagnated because Sony and Nintendo can't keep up no more. Nintendo's milking the inevitable. They see the future ahead of them, and Sony's trying to stay above. They're trying to stay in line with Microsoft. We got more hardware. Go ahead, use the hardware sales, I guess, if it matters, because at the end of the day, Microsoft controls everything. They control your games, they control your ecosystem, they control everything. That's what you don't understand. This is what I try to explain to you people, but y'all want to make it as simple as it's just a console. It's not just a console. That's why Microsoft is expanding on the whole idea, because they know you ain't going to exist. They know it. Sony don't have the funds to be able to continue on the way they would want to. This is why you're getting remasters and remakes, bro. Sony don't have the pockets. Keep complaining about Game Pass Ultimate, but it seems like it's working for Xbox.
But some of the stuff I've played the most this year, I played 75 hours.
Look at that, a game that he could have played on the Sega Genesis. What's this?
Of Vampire Survivors. I played Vampire Survivors for 75 hours.
Oh, wow. Look at that game pushing the... Is that PS5 Pro enhanced?
1 month they played 75 hours. I've played, I don't even know how many hours of Balatro and stuff like that. And those games practically don't even have graphics. Not to back on the...
Oh, PS5 Pro. Wow, man. You know, I think it got a PS5 Pro label. Wow, I can't wait to play this on my PS5 Pro.
Developers,
whoa!
This is a $3
Look at
game.
this!
It's incredibly fun. And you know what? When I'm playing that, I'm not really thinking about how bad the graphics are, because it's so dang fun. But
yeah, well, if it was a PlayStation game, there'd be a cinematic every time he killed an enemy. Man, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, man, like I said. And keep dreaming.